Today, we're going to start a landscape project inspired by the art of Ted Harrison. Before we begin, let's look at a few more examples of Ted Harrison's paintings. So one thing I noticed right away is that Ted Harrison uses a lot of really wiggly lines to create his mountains and his skies. So let's look at a couple more examples. Here's another great example. So more wiggly lines or kind of jagged lines. They kind of look sharp. And here's another great example. He even does it for his underwater landscapes. So we're going to use the same kind of wiggly, jagged, uneven lines to create our Ted Harrison inspired landscape. So here's one that I have already done that I didn't color. But as you can see, I'm using the same kind of bumpy, jaggy, uneven, wibbly-wobbly kind of line to create the ground and the mountains. I'm going to use a Sharpie marker for mine. You can use a pencil or a regular black marker or whatever you have available to use. So I'm starting off here at the bottom with a really uneven, bumpy, wiggly line. And I'm going to add another one right on top. And now I want to create some space in my landscape. So I'm going to add another line right through the middle of that section and then a second line through the middle of the bottom section to create kind of a foreground and a middle ground. Now I'm going to add the mountains in the background. And again, I'm going to continue using that wibbly wobbly kind of shaky line. My hand is just kind of going and doing its natural thing. I'm not worried about making it perfect. So there we go. I have one jagged mountain that looks nice and natural. Now I'm going to add another mountain with another shaky line, kind of going up to make my second mountain. Okay, so I'm going to fill in this empty space up here in the sky with a circle for the sun. You don't necessarily have to copy exactly what I'm doing. You can add your own details and designs in the sun. But I know just from looking at Ted Harrison's artwork that he used wiggly lines in the sky as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for mine. This will also give me more spaces to add color later on. Okay, I'm going to start adding some extra details down here in the landscape part on the mountains and the hills. And Ted Harrison used a lot of different kinds of details in his. You could add little people in yours. You could add houses or rivers or people as well, maybe some trees. So it's totally up to you what details you decide to include. I think for this one, for my other one, I used houses and trees. For this new one, I'm going to add just a couple of trees, and they're going to be pine trees because this is going to be kind of a winter landscape, and I want these trees to look like evergreen trees or pine trees, so I'm going to use triangles and rectangles. The trees that are in the background or in the distance get smaller. The trees in the foreground are a little bit bigger, so keep that in mind as you draw your details. All right, I'm looking and I'm checking things out and I think I'm happy with the way that looks. So now let's talk about coloring. So Ted Harrison used a lot of different kinds of colors for his paintings. But one thing I do notice is that the areas at the bottom, he used lighter colors. And then as he gets back further into the distance, they get darker and darker. And I noticed that he does that with a lot of his paintings. Let's take a look at another one. Here's a good example. So down here at the bottom is white, then it gets to a light icy blue, then a little bit darker, 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 until he gets to a dark blue in the background. Here's another example, white, light blue, and then dark blue in the background. So I think I'm going to stick with that kind of idea for mine. Again, you don't necessarily have to do that for yours if you don't want to. I am using crayons for mine. You should use whatever materials you have with you that you brought with you to class or that you have with you at home.